Welcome back to the Cute Games Club. Since the new Pokemon Snap has been announced this year, I'm making a mini-series covering photography in games as a mechanic. But the very first thing that I wanted to do was talk about the history of the original Pokemon Snap. In our last episode, we discussed the rise and fall of Jack's Beanstalk team, who were put together by Nintendo and HAL to make a game for Nintendo 64's disk drive. Now, I briefly mentioned the disk drive in an earlier episode, but I didn't talk about the whole deal, so here it is. The Nintendo 64 actually bucked convention at the time by using cartridge games instead of discs. But Nintendo promised a disc reading upgrade in the disk drive, which would be released a year after the 64. Now, the disk drive could do a lot of things. It had a bit of a computing bump, it had an internal clock that games could access, and it could connect to the internet, which led to a whole world of possibilities. Its release took so long, however, 2 years later than planned, and was so bleak, most of the games set to come out for it were eventually canned or ported. Like the DD, things were looking pretty grim for the Jack's Beanstalk team. They had come up with an idea to make a game about photography. That's really cool, it's unique. But, they hadn't been able to put together a prototype that made it seem like it was fun. Most of the people in charge were kind of washing their hands of this team, including designer Shigeru Miyamoto. So it was looking like curtains. But Satoru Iwata, president of HAL Laboratories and, absolute freaking rock star, he refused to call it quits. He wanted to bring the team a win, but in order to do that, he needed something that would kind of resuscitate this project. He needed something that would steer this photography game concept in a playable direction. Luckily for him, things were happening outside of Jack's Beanstalk that were going to allow him to do that. In 1996, while the Jack's Beanstalk team is in the midst of their development hell, these two weird little games come out called Pokemon Red and Pokemon Green for the Game Boy. Red and Green are two slightly different altered versions of the same game, for those of you who haven't played them before.
It encourages trading. It's like a cool marketing trick.
This Curious Pocket Monster RPG gets a very slow start in February, but by the end of the year, Pokemon is the best-selling game in Japan. It's so popular that developer Game Freak pretty much sets right to work making 2 more color variants and the sequel. And Creatures Inc., the company that handles Pokemon merchandising, is getting licensing requests out the wazoo. Nintendo's like, man, people cannot get enough of this Pokemon thing. So, it's pretty good that we own 1/3 of the license. That sounds like it's gonna be good for us. Around 1997-98, probably due to his good relationship with Nintendo and other second-party developers, Satoru Iwata found himself offering assistance to Game Freak and Creatures in the wake of Pokemon's phenomenal success. He helped program Pokemon Stadium for the Nintendo 64, and he was acting as a go-between for Nintendo and Game Freak to plan the game's North American release. I'd like to remind everyone watching, again, that at the time, Satoru Iwata was also the president of HAL Laboratories. He was programming a game and negotiating this licensing thing and also just running a whole game development company that is unrelated to Pokemon. God, what a mensch, seriously. Now, if Iwata was aware of Pokemon's popularity and was seeing these marching orders to start getting ready to send the franchise overseas, he probably was aware of the power or the potential that Pokemon had. The power to revive a game that was kind of going through a really rough time. So the Jack's Beanstalk team, at this point, they're nearly wrecked because they just lost some key members mid-development of this prototype. They're about to call it quits, seriously. They finally start getting these kind of new employees. Satoru Iwata starts hiring people that he knows, programmers and designers that he can trust to kind of help revitalize the team. And at the same time, he has this franchise that he knows has really, really good power. And so they finally start building this game. And we end up with Pokemon Snap.
Really? That's hilarious.
Now, when I moseyed on over to NoClip.website, an amazing digital museum of video game levels, I was able to take a closer look at Pokemon Snap and how it was built. And I found the stages are extraordinarily simple, even compared to other Nintendo 64 games. Render culling was utilized and some models were incomplete in order to keep stages light. We also clearly see that all game assets are 2D art outside of the photo stages themselves, and only 63 modeled Pokemon of the 151 original types ended up in the game. This all points to Snap having been made as small and therefore quickly as possible. If I were to guess, I'd say there's little trace of whatever prototype Jax Beanstalk was working on before. The addition of Pokemon to Pokemon Snap, which happened in about the last year of development, for some represented the saving grace of Jax Beanstalk. Having the subject matter be Pokemon gave players a reason to pick up the game and its unique mechanic, and having a vision of the final product helped rally an increasingly unstable team. But for other people, it was probably a painful reminder of this spectacular failure they had all been thrown into, and the way it sort of got wrenched away from them towards the end. In all the interviews and research I've been able to find about this, the Pokemon pivot itself is referred to very vaguely. You get the hint of regret, sometimes I think even a little bit of resentment. So for that reason, it's kind of hard to know exactly when it happened or how it happened, but based on what I could dig up, I'd say it's a very fair guess to say it was thanks to Satoru Iwata, and of course, a truly ragged handful of beans that refused to give up. Despite how they felt, I really hope in the end they made something that they were able to be proud of, because the game was actually kind of a hit, by the way. Pokemon Snap fans have been pestering Game Freak for a sequel for years, so I used to think Snap was a cult classic, audience grew over time kind of hit, but I was wrong. Snap had immediate success out of the gate. In Japan, it became the 4th best-selling game the month of its release, and also the highest-selling Nintendo 64 game at the time. It even beat out Smash Bros. In the United States, it became the 5th best-selling game of the month in a matter of days after its release. We also have an unusually detailed record of Pokemon Snap's American rental numbers, and that almost certainly came about because of the fondly remembered Blockbuster Snapshot kiosks. Blockbuster was a movie rental franchise in the United States. There's probably a handful of kids watching now who don't even know what it is. I can't believe I have to explain it. But even if you weren't alive or you don't remember Blockbuster, you should put some respect on their name. If it wasn't for them, video game rentals in the United States would actually probably be illegal right now. But over a decade after Nintendo sued Blockbuster to block rentals, they decided to chill out and actually collaborate with them, installing these eye-catching kiosks in Blockbusters across the nation to help promote Pokemon Snap and Pokemon Stadium for the N64. Inside of the kiosk was basically a Nintendo 64 with a printer peripheral. It could actually run entire games. But most people were just running, a demo cartridge of Pokemon Stadium or Pokemon Snap. But if you brought your cartridge of Pokemon Snap and plugged it into a second slot in the kiosk, you could actually print out the photos that you had taken in the game, and they would come out as little stickers. $3. I mean, that's super cool. According to eToys blogs, the kiosks were made at the System Development Division at HAL Laboratories, and that's kind of all I know about it, but I really would like to find out more about specifically how it was made and how that collaboration came about, because it's so brilliant. There was a problem we just couldn't figure out, since we chose taking a photo as the play theme. I thought about not just taking photos, but taking photos and then bringing them to a print store and having them printed out, which would become a grand cycle of play. But at first there wasn't a printout system. The only thing you could do in the game is say, I took this picture, If you wanted to show someone, you had to say, "Come visit me." That's not a great way to spread the game amongst players. Well said, Yamamoto-san. I definitely think that Pokemon Snap Kiosk helped contribute to the game's popularity. Actually, was that the first time that you could print a photo from a console game? Okay, I can't think about this anymore. I've been researching this story for about 2 weeks, and I really need to finish making this series. In conclusion, Pokemon Snap became a rightfully beloved game, and despite the torment that its developers had to go through, Jack's Beanstalk actually lived up to their name. They came together to make something truly unique. Something that went on to inspire future generations of game developers. So that's gonna do it for today. But in my next few videos, I'll be covering some of those games and how they made photography even more interesting. So thanks for watching, and I hope you come back to see it. Guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. If you can't get enough of Cute Games history or Pokemon Snap, then you might want to mosey on over to this Instagram that I set up. While I'm doing my research, I will occasionally run into a extremely interesting, but nevertheless not completely related fact that I can't fit into my videos. So on my Instagram, I'm putting all the little fun tidbits and facts that I come across that I think are super interesting. And if you are into that sort of thing, you might want to check it out. Okay, bye.
What was your inspiration?
It's my life.